let's pivot and transition into our professional keynote that we're very, very excited to have. I know AC is going to help me out with this. Vance, thank you so much for being here. Vance Nevada is an executive board member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, which is pro wrestling's nonprofit organization that is all about assisting the people within the wrestling industry that have entertained us for all of our lives and what has been the entry point, I think, for all of us, and even coming here and wanting to study this as professionals, as academics, as scholars, as practitioners in this space. This is so dope, and I'm so grateful to have you here, Vance. Thank you for being here, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Absolutely, my pleasure to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm not sure. Did you have a presentation you put together to tell us a little bit more about CAC, or how would you prefer to do this?
No, I think we're just going to have a conversation.
Love it. Old school style.
Yeah,
That is my jam as well. AC, did you want to kick us off with the conversation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you to the two previous presenters. I promise I'll be hitting you up in the chat later on. Up next for our second keynote of the day, we are going to be going into the world of professional wrestling from people who have lived it. And because of that, we're going to be expanding our perspective of the study thereof. Uh, Today, we have the great Vance Nevada. Some would say Canada's greatest export to the professional wrestling industry. Um, Joining us from the Cauliflower Alley Club. So, for the past 60 years, I believe this is their 60th anniversary, the Cauliflower Alley Club, of which I'm a dues paying member, has sought to honor the history and the individuals involved in creating the history of professional wrestling and several other combat sports historically. I want to introduce Vance. Thank you again for being here. And I just wanted to jump in with the discussion of uh, first, please tell us about yourself and how you came to your current position, and then maybe we can get into what the Cauliflower Alley Club currently does for professional wrestlers and members of the industry, historians, and the like. But first, about you,
sure.
sir.
Yeah, so I broke into the wrestling business in 1993 at 17 years old, starting in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is just a little bit north of Grand Forks, North Dakota. And at that time, wrestling was still sort of in the lull after the death of the territories. So in 1989, the last of the Canadian territories finally shut down. So at that time, when we were starting in the industry, there was a lot of guys who were holdovers from the territory days, who maybe didn't get picked up by the WWF at that time or other opportunities. And there was a lot of hope to revive the industry. But looking back, early 1993, we were a little bit oblivious to the reality of the situation, and I think it was a very difficult time to break in on the independents in particular because. The big change for the independents was, in the territory era, every one of those regional companies had television. And so without television, trying to rebuild, regional wrestling was really a challenge. But, very early on in my career, I was maybe, a year or two into the sport. I sort of, heard a tidbit of information by one of the color commentators on one of my matches that was about my trainer. And he had, made reference to my trainer being, a former tag team champion and a partner with this guy in the 1950s, and it piqued my curiosity. And I thought, well, as a way to honor my trainer, I'm going to go find one of these clippings from back in the day of when he was, a wrestler himself and active on the scene, and give it to him as a gift. And as it turned out, that story that was on the commentary was completely fictitious. It never happened. But in the meantime, I was already hooked. I was going through old microfilms and seeing, the origins of careers like Moose Morowski and the Von Steigers and Gil Hayes and many of these guys, Bulldog Bob Brown, who was quite notorious in the 1980s, and I got hooked. So in 1999, I wrote my first book, Wrestling in the Canadian West, which was kind of an encapsulated history of the West half of Canada for professional wrestling. And through that, I was doing a lot of travel, to different companies across Western Canada, and I would often piggyback my wrestling bookings with opportunities for research. So if I knew I was going to be in Calgary, Alberta, and I needed to be at the arena for 5 p.m., I would get to the city at noon and go to the library for 3 or 4 hours and do more research. So when my book initially came out in 1999, the first book, and then there was more to dig. So I kept digging and did a second book in 2009. And that was when I really, got introduced to the Cauliflower Alley Club through a friend of mine, Bob Leonard. Bob was involved with professional wrestling since the mid 1950s with Stampede Wrestling, and his name comes up frequently when you talk about the Hart family. Bob was a local newspaper man and a photographer. And so he kind of became sort of this ancillary arm to the Hart, sometimes being a front man to promote their towns, but often a ringside photographer and a PR guy for the company. And he had reached out to me and he said, listen, I know that you're really keen on the history of wrestling. I think you'd really enjoy the Cauliflower Alley Club. And brought me to my first reunion that year. And I've been a lifetime member ever since. So now 17 years, a lifetime member of the Cauliflower Alley Club.
That's so
Eh,
awesome, man. I was just gonna say, some of the earlier presentations all that we've had throughout the day, there's been this theme of like geopolitics and the importance of regions, and we've had historians on talking about like foreign heels and its political influence, and we were talking about rhetoric and messaging and so many different things about, how these cultural impressions, are influence the performance art, right? Like of wrestling and how those things can be almost like a social vessel of listening, of being able to like mirror what's actually like going on in society and stuff. So hearing that, you're kind of a fellow nerd too, right? Like when you were going to different regions, different areas, you were in the library and in the books. And do you think
Yeah,
that type of cultural history is something that do you think it's still going on now, or and if so, or if not, like what are we losing or gaining from either the lack of attention to cultural history and wrestling and
sure.
regional play, or not?
Yeah. You know what? As somebody that's still actively in the game as a booker and a promoter, and I'm trying to retire from the ring myself, but unsuccessfully. Uh, we're finding that there's a huge change. When we look back even to the 1980s, so not that far ago, at some of the content that was excusable on television versus now. Uh, even maybe. When you watch WWE, you'll often see the commentators make reference to, oh, so and so's gear is an homage to this wrestler from the 80s. But when we try to do anything creatively that they were doing in the 80s, sometimes that is a very taboo.
Right.
So trying to recreate some of those promos if they're racial in nature.
Mhm.
The woke mafia is all over you and now saying, "Oh, Vance Nevada is a racist because he made reference to this promo from the 1980s." When really it isn't the case at all. It's trying not to let some of that art die. And so there's a lot more sensitivity where now you're not you have to dance very delicately around issues of
Mhm.
culture and race. You have to dance very delicately around sexuality. These are things that maybe and I certainly won't share the language today, but you might hear a homophobic chant
Mhm.
in the 80s, inspired by one of the babyface wrestlers in a
Mhm.
crowd. So you've got this arena of 10,000 people now, chanting this. Now, even to hint at something like that, now you're at a risk of losing your job. So
Mhm.
I think from a performer perspective, it has made us have to think more cleverly in the way that as villains, how do we create heat, and I would say even more so, um, In Canada, there is no appetite for the shock value type things that you were just discussing.
Mm.
You'll simply be sent home. So we have to think more cleverly about what are the things that are still okay for us to delve into. And so, amusingly, when you think about the parallels, one of the things that is always fair game is politics.
Yeah.
And so, wrestling in Alberta, Canada, where it's the oil capital of Canada, similar to Texas in the US, I would bill myself as a heel from Ottawa, Ontario, and always scold Alberta about their dirty oil and how, the prime minister of the country has sent me here to bring some brochures on green energy. So after I finish my match, we'll be having a seminar in the lobby and these types of things, right? So it's still political, it's still current events, but it gets away from the traditional, race and culture and
Hmm.
and heritage, and we're seeing that the fans are responding to it heavily, and it just it you still need to be plugged into what's going on in the world. Wrestling isn't in its own bubble anymore.
No, definitely, and can be considered kind of like the if it's lazy, right? If you just use a headline, it's you're not being creatively conscious or using critical thinking, right? To go a little bit deeper, like you were saying, like be creative, like don't be lazy, you know what I mean? And just get a cheap pop of heat, like you said, topical things always. It's like if you go to the Knicks and you end up talking about the other team that just beat them or something, it's that those kind of things of playing on like that's clever and it's cute, but when it comes to the
Sure.
like cultural sensitivity or cultural competency, it's like, hey, like maybe be a little bit smarter. We can talk about politics and race and gender identity, all that stuff, but can you do it smartly and not just be lazy?
Absolutely. And we're seeing even, wrestlers, whether they've made a statement or not, maybe they've just seen a meme or a
Right.
post online that resonates with them, and even just sharing a post that is considered to be politically incorrect. Now there's a whole like swarm of people that want to make this an issue and challenge their livelihood.
So
AC, sorry, I cut you off.
no, please. We're here to get as much discussion as we can across the spectrum of possible discourse on the
Hmm.
industry and the things that are happening and the perspective of the change. We had a presentation about that included this earlier today, and a couple of them that involved this idea how professional wrestling at certain times in history is reflective of the culture that it happens in. And in the territory days, I asserted that in different particular geographic regions, the wrestling that was popular there would be indicative of the subculture of that region. I feel like it's very apropos your anecdote about the regionalism of different parts of Canada having some type of geographic rivalry or a clash of the subcultures from those particular regions. Now,
Absolutely. When you look at the Rougeau family, for example, when
hmm,
Johnny Rougeau took over the Montreal territory in 1964, it was concurrent with Montreal hosting the World Expo. And what he had created was not just you know, an allusion to culture, but he created the base model of the Rougeau family promotion from the 60s and 70s was Quebec versus the world, French Canadians versus the world. So when they would bring in anybody who wasn't French Canadian, now they're automatically a villain. So even just English speaking Canadian, yeah, that guy's a villain. Let alone being, the Russians or the Japanese or whatever other, nationalities or foreign threats that they would create.
now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Canada at that time, this coincided with some pushes for the independence of Quebec, correct?
And I don't think that's ever really fully died. It's just lost momentum. There's still um, a heavy movement there for French sovereignty and even the sovereignty of the French language in Quebec.
Hmm. Okay. Well, great. Now, taking a quick turn away from that. And I want to dive in on the Cauliflower Alley Club itself and the work it's doing to help preserve professional wrestling history and give voice to individuals who were part of the wrestling fraternity and everything. And also want to, I just want to make mention work as a historian was honored by the Cauliflower Alley Club. You'll forgive me if I get the year wrong. I believe in 2010 you were given the James Melby Award for your work as a professional wrestling historian. So congratulations on that. It's very prestigious. But could you talk? Could you talk to us a little bit about, or for anyone who doesn't know, the work the Flower Alley Club is doing, the type of events it has, its publications, and its.
Sure. Well, the origin of the club was in the 1960s in Los Angeles. And certainly, I think when they started out, they had no idea that it would become what it has today. So at that period of time in Los Angeles, there was this really interesting commingling of cultures because there was a lot of professional wrestlers at that time that were getting into Hollywood. And so most famously in that era was Iron Mike Mazurki, who appeared in many different movies as an actor and as a stuntman. Woody Strode was an African American gentleman who was very successful in wrestling and also in Hollywood. And so you would have these social groups that involved wrestlers and boxers and these Hollywood actors. And so it started really as a social club in the 60s. They would meet for weekly lunches at the Sportsman's Lodge in Los Angeles. And it just became a gathering, a brotherhood and sisterhood of pro wrestling. And it'd be a really good networking opportunity as well. Other wrestlers wanted to get involved in acting and movies, and actors maybe wanted to do a cameo appearance at the regional wrestling show as a guest referee or a ring announcer or something like that. And so this is how it initially began. But at that same time, Mike Mazurki himself was pretty successful, in Hollywood. And so whenever one of the wrestlers, I would equate it to like a Dwayne Johnson or John Cena today. And so when any of the wrestlers, in the network would fall on hard times, maybe, hey, the transmission is blown on my car. Now I can't make my bookings. I can't get paid because there was no such thing as guaranteed contracts in those days. And outside of the two or three major companies, in the U.S. right now, that still doesn't exist. So if you don't make your appearance, you don't make your money. And so they would often reach out to Mike Mazurki and say, "Hey, Mike, the transmission is blown in my car, or I'm behind on my rent, whatever the situation was that they were dealing with." And Mike would start a phone tree among the other people that would be part of that club and meet for lunch and say, "Listen, our friend is having some difficulty. He needs $800. I'm in for $100. What can I count you in for?" And so it started very informally like that, or Mike himself, through the secretary of the club at the time, Maria Bernardi. He would make sure that, all of the wrestlers, particularly those that he knew maybe weren't main event guys making top money, would have a surprise Christmas turkey delivered to their doorstep so they knew that they could celebrate the holidays with their families. And so that's kind of how it began, very informally. And so if you look at any records of the club, prior to the early 80s, there's no record of any of this philanthropy that was going on. It was just happening. It was, the boys taking care of the boys. And that was a mindset that has always been instilled in locker rooms, even into the 1990s when I broke into the business. If you were a wrestler and you knew that you needed a new car, you're going to go buy that from one of the wrestlers who's also a car salesman or an insurance salesman or whatever it is you support within the fraternity. And so this is sort of like the birth of this culture. So really things got bigger in the 1980s and the reunions got more and more organized, and there was actors attending the annual events. So just last night I was watching a movie with my wife, and actor Elliot Gould was on screen, and I'm like, hey, here's something interesting you probably didn't know. Elliot Gould is a past honoree of the Cauliflower Alley Club. Sylvester Stallone, Mickey Rooney, Charles Bronson, some of these action stars from the movies were also regulars at the Cauliflower Alley Club. Even the late Andy Kaufman was hanging around in 1980, just about the time that he got onto Taxi. Was starting to hang out with the wrestlers, a few years before he got actively involved with the sport.
Okay.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, so no, I just when you said that about Elliot Gould, it near knocked me out of my chair, because this intersect of these cultural icons with professional wrestling is it's something that currently the I don't trying to find the polite way to say this. It's something they work with a lot of the wrestling companies on TV to manufacture. However,
Right.
you're telling us this story about how it's happening organically, just as a matter somewhat of happenstance at the time. And these honorees like Elliot Gould, Charles Bronson, Andy Kaufman, and I was just curious, and I'll ask you later about the honors, but I just
Sure.
maybe want to jump up. That's true, Elliot Gould.
Yeah.
I know that.
So yeah, when the club had a bit of a shutdown and a regroup in 1980, and then they started doing the annual reunions again in 1983, and this is where we really started to honor the contributions of the wrestlers involved in the business. Because there's a big disconnect. I mean, at that time when they started, there were no professional wrestling Hall of Fames anywhere in North America. Now we have one in upstate New York. There's one in Waterloo, Iowa. The WWE has their Hall of Fame. But at that time, there wasn't really anything. And so you might have someone like Classy Freddie Blassie, who had contributed to the industry for decades. And now it was, the wrestling industry giving back. So the annual reunions became a focus of the agenda every year, and you'd have wrestlers. Initially, in the 1980s, they were in LA. In 2000, they moved them to Las Vegas, and that's where they've been every year. But I'd say now, over the past 20 years, there's been a greater focus on the philanthropy and making sure that we're taking care of wrestlers, because at the time, when you look at in that big hype era of professional wrestling in the 1980s, all these guys that we know from the early WrestleManias or from the territories, all of these guys were working without health insurance because there was no insurer that would cover them. And so they're out there, taking every risk, with their health, working like this gravy train will never end. And then when it does, unfortunately, there are so many sad stories of wrestlers that ended up penniless, alone, living in one-room apartments when they were at one time, on the top of the world, making, six figures, before this was such a common thing. And so giving back is a big part of what we do. So the Cauliflower Alley Club has a separate fund, the Cauliflower Alley Benevolent Fund. And from that fund, every year, we issue more than $100,000 in grant support, not loans, direct grants to support wrestlers in need. So it could be for mobility aids, it could be for a wheelchair accessible van, it could be to install ramps on their home because now they require a wheelchair. Any number of things, any medical setback. And even myself in 2016, was a recipient of the benevolent fund. So I was still wrestling, on the independent. So it's not a full-time gig. Had just started a new job, didn't have medical benefits, and required a spinal fusion in my lower back. And so the surgeon said, "You're going to require 8 weeks off to heal properly." And I said, "I don't have medical right now, so I can't afford to take 8 weeks off of work. I'm going to have to go back to work immediately." And the Cauliflower Alley Club, sent me some money so that I was able to stay home and recover and get back to health. So, and we're doing this on a daily basis. One of the things that one of our previous directors, Carl Lauer, was very adamant about is that the aid that we provide to wrestlers will never be used as an advertisement, both for the dignity and the pride of the individuals involved, but also, we're doing this for the right reasons. We're not the people out there with with our cell phone cameras in hand giving out sandwiches to the homeless so we feel good about ourselves. And we've got video showing what great people we are. We're doing this to give back to wrestlers that have given everything. Their physical health, often their family relationships, in service to professional wrestling. And so we've helped, hundreds of men and women, recover when they need it the most.
I want to say that, and the part of why we wanted to highlight the work the Cauliflower Alley Club does for uh, members or former members of the professional wrestling industry is the lack of performativity in what they're trying to do to help people. Helping someone, it's not meant to be a boast, but as an ethical imperative, I think is it's increasingly rare in the social media age, but I feel like that only highlights the importance of that kind of authenticity. Can you share briefly if anyone here, because we have the live meeting today, but this will also go to the internet for all time for anyone who sees this, if they want to contribute to the benevolent fund or CAC, can you tell us briefly where they should go or how they can do that?
Absolutely. So the website I think just popped up on my screen in the chat, caulifloweralleyclub.org. On the website, there is a button right at the top of the website to donate, and you can make a donation, to the Cauliflower Alley Club through the Benevolent Fund.
Hmm.
Our big fundraiser every year is our annual reunion, and this year will be the 60th reunion in
That's
Las Vegas.
huge.
And yeah, so every year we get together, and over the course of 3 days, we have some seminars, which often include roundtables from, veterans talking about their days in particular territories, and road stories and a lot of stuff that you typically wouldn't get access to. It's a little bit behind the curtain. The Cauliflower Alley Club reunion really isn't a fan fest. It's really, at the point when you show up and get your name badge, you're welcomed into the family. So you sidle up next to someone on their way to breakfast, and next thing you know, you're having breakfast with Jerry Briscoe, or Ted DiBiase, or any of these other people. But what I'm really excited about with the reunion itself is that we have 2 nights of honors where we recognize wrestlers that sometimes we have guys that are on stage who could just as easily be on stage for the WWE Hall of Fame or for some of the other Pro Wrestling Hall of Fames. But very often we are honoring some of the unsung heroes, the workhorses,
Absolutely.
the journeymen, if you will, that have done their time. But we also are offering honoring people in different categories. So not just the wrestlers, but we're also honoring referees, ring announcers, and just in the past few years, we've started to recognize wrestlers on the independents. So now we have an independent award, an independent promoters award. Um, so it's really a mixed bag every year. Who's going to be there in terms of the all levels of the industry? From last year we honored Tom Pritchard for his contributions as a wrestling trainer. And his brother Bruce, who of course is an executive with WWE, came down to give him his introduction. So you have people from the top of the business in the WWE to rookies that are just starting in the business, taking their first steps. So it's really a great opportunity to get fraternally connected within the wrestling industry internationally.
No, I absolutely love that. And especially because I'm a Vegas, local myself. So I can't wait to put in my membership and attend the 60. That's big. That's really big. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's I think other than the year and a half or whatever that we were out of commission for
Hmm.
COVID, there's been a reunion every year.
Hmm.
And then in the late 2000s, there was we would have the Vegas event in the spring, and then there would be an event on the East Coast in the fall.
Oh, okay.
So there've been a few years like that, but the it's hard to beat the hotel room rates in Vegas versus any other city in the U.S. or Canada. So
Uh,
and it's a pretty popular spot for even Canadians to come, despite the exchange rate on the dollar.
Indeed. But that preservation of wrestling history is something that, needs to be promoted and have such a higher platform. It's just huge, and celebrating veteran wrestlers and that have influenced the culture. It's like why we're all here, literally, and
Absolutely. And I think that, when we, have the wrestlers up on stage, the presentations that you're getting are unedited,
yeah.
and sometimes very unpredictable. Definitely not what you'd be seeing on network television, or in a heavily edited 3-second delay WWE Hall of Fame acceptance speech. Sometimes you're hearing some of the most outrageous but true road stories that ever occurred, that have never been committed to print and probably never should be.
Hey, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, Feel free, anybody else in the audience, to put some questions in the chat. I want to be respectful of your time and just have you for another 5 minutes or so. AC, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I think you had another question.
No, I just wanted to discuss it a little more because I recall, as I and every other person who's a fan of or involved with professional wrestling saw the resurrection of Jake the Snake documentary, and this very poignant moment where before the in the final act of the film where he's getting his redemption, he's being inducted in the Cauliflower Alley Club at a reunion. You'll have to forgive me. I don't know the year offhand, but he mentioned in the film, in his acceptance speech, how much the acceptance and support of the professional wrestling fraternity meant to him as an individual. In your experience, is that a common feeling among the members? And if so, please tell us some more about that.
Yeah, this is
How
this is
important that
something
is.
that this is definitely something that I struggle with daily. Is that when you're out there on the road, you're in front of crowds, you have that rush of adrenaline in that moment, doing the part that you love. When you come home and you're sitting alone in the quiet, it is the most agonizing quiet that ever was. And so for wrestlers, when they retire, and now their phone isn't ringing anymore because they're not on the road getting booked. You slowly lose touch with the people that you were working with. It can feel very, very isolating, and you may not realize, how much your work or your efforts, are appreciated by so many. And so when the Cauliflower Alley Club calls you, and there you are getting honored in front of a room full of your peers, it's very rewarding and validating. I'll share an experience that happened with me. It still gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. So in 2010, when I was honored with the Historian Award, I'm up there and I was so nervous because I'm going to be in front of 650 wrestling people. And I look out in the front row, and the very first table is former AWA World Champion Nick Bockwinkel, former NWA World Champion Terry Funk, and Ted DiBiase right in front of the podium. And it just felt like this is such a surreal moment because for all of my life, I've been in the crowd watching you, and now I'm the guy in the spotlight. And it felt incredibly wrong. But I had rewritten my speech probably 7 or 8 times because I was so nervous, going up there and in that environment. And then when I looked down on my paper, all the words were just squiggly lines. I couldn't even read what was on the paper. But I got through my speech and my went to do my photo with my award. And as I was walking back to my table, I've had to pass Terry Funk's table, and Terry stands up and puts out his hand. I think, oh, he's just going to give me a handshake and a congratulations. And as I took his hand, he pulled me in for a half hug, and he whispered in my ear, "I'm proud of you, son." And my eyes immediately started to water. Just such an incredible surreal moment. Here's this guy, this legend, who's acknowledged me this way. And then Terry and I had a friendship for years after that. And actually, he called me up one day when he had a history project that he wanted to do and wanted to know if I could help him with it. And friendships like that have happened organically. Now, when they tell you you should never meet your heroes because they're going to let you down, and that has not been my experience at all with Cauliflower Alley Club. Some of these people now that I admired as a kid and as a rookie wrestler are now peers and colleagues and great friends as well.
Man, I would have lost it too if Terry whispered something like that in my ear. I was just like, "Ah!" And yeah, that's just super emotional. And like for me, like I have my PhD in media psychology, and so understanding the psychology of even what you were talking about of like once that crowd is gone, where else do you get that? The isolation that you feel, right? From, hey, this used to be my life and invested in for so long and now it just
Yeah.
stops. Now I'm supposed to go to Stater Brothers? Like what the fuck? Like how are you supposed to,
Yes.
go back and forth? There's no transition. There's no wellness policy plan, to help the psyche of an individual.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you think about the movie The Wrestler with Mickey
Yeah.
Rourke,
Love it.
you saw that definitely played out where,
Yes.
he's getting ready for his shift to work and he's got that roar of the crowd in his head as he comes
Hmm.
through the door, and then he's working at a deli. And this is why you see a lot of wrestlers struggle to make that transition after their career
Yeah.
ends, particularly if it ends early because of an unfortunate injury or something like that. If it didn't allow itself to go to a natural conclusion,
Hmm.
but even with that, we still see wrestlers who did get to have a very long career, and I won't mention names, that still seem to have a hard time adjusting to regular society.
They shall remain nameless. I can, yeah, ramble. I was like, would you like this alphabetically? Uh, we could certainly get some of those names in there. Like I said, I want to be respectful of your time, but I don't know if anybody in the chat or the audience wants to raise their little zoomy hand or put a question in the chat for Vance, as we start to wrap up this conversation. And yeah, the link is in the chat of the Cauliflower Alley Club of where you can donate to these funds, these grants for which are obviously significantly crucial platforms and going to the right places and to the right people and in an authentic manner that's not performative. Like we don't need no selfie stick to like, but look at me like donating here. It's like, no, it's not about that. This is absolutely authentic and organic. It's just like help when you can. You don't need to do it with a fucking spotlight on you. You know what I'm saying? And like
Absolutely.
how can we just start to control what we can control and not make everything a social media moment? Like I personally just, so sick of that stuff. But that's why I think
Yes.
we're in the right room with the right people discussing these things. Um, is there any or AC, did you have another question? Or because Vance, I wanted to give you an opportunity too to make any kind of last remarks about just yeah, everything that we've talked about right now and any last kind of takeaways you would like us nerds, fellow nerds to walk away with today.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that you're in front of a large Zoom room full of a lot of wrestling historians, if
Yes.
you feel like plugging one or more or all of the books or articles or research you've done on professional wrestling history, I would say this is probably a very receptive audience to that. So if you
Sure.
feel so
Yeah.
inclined, tell us where we can find the works of Vance
Yeah.
Nevada in to sharing any parting thoughts you have on the continued great work the Cauliflower Alley Club and yourself are doing.
Sure. Well, in terms of history and reference, I'm really proud of the book that we put out in 2022, Uncontrolled Chaos. It's a complete history book of professional wrestling in Canada. Territory by territory, company by company, and more than 700 individual championships recorded and their title histories. So if somebody
That's huge.
was a character in Canadian wrestling, they're in the book. Uh,
Wow.
and and so this book is available at friesenpress.com. And you can find it floating around on Amazon sometimes as well. We had a lot of success with it. We're already slowly chipping away at a sequel. So that's for me personally, but we definitely want to encourage anybody that's interested to come to the reunion this August. We're going to be at the Plaza Hotel, August 24th to 26th, I believe, for our 60th annual reunion. We already have a bit of information on some of the honorees, and they're going to be starting to be announced in the next few weeks. And a few more honorees are going to be confirmed over the next 7 days. But it's just a great opportunity to get immersed in the culture of professional wrestling and support a great cause in the process.
No doubt, yeah, and I will most certainly be there, right up the street from me. So I'm looking forward to that, and I can't thank you enough again for taking the time out and being here with us, sharing your stories, some of your history, and certainly these texts, and again underscoring the importance of recognizing and celebrating those that entertained us, bodies on the line, brains, everything, right? That have been our origin stories, our own touch points, right? We all have our first,
Yes,
entry point, and regardless of when it was and who it was and where it was, right? Like it all brought us here, and to some degree, we've extended that into our professional lives, our personal lives, academic lives, like absolutely everything. So this has been absolutely fantastic. And again, everyone, the link is in the chat. And Vance, again, thank you so much for being here and sharing everything with us. We'll find a link to Uncontrolled Chaos and put and share that out too for everybody. That's a damn encyclopedia. That's
it
like,
uh, it is. Yeah, we've
yeah,
when I first started doing books, they would always try to limit my word content
you're
or
like, no.
word count. And they would say, even with this book, they said, "Oh, you've got 460 pages here. We need to cut it to 80." And I said, "We can't cut a syllable. Like this is a history book." And then
Yeah.
fortunately, the WWE has released some of those big, biographical or encyclopedia of the WWE that
Hmm.
were big books with a higher price tag as proof of concept.
Mm.
And so my publisher finally relented, and now that the book has done as well as it has, they're like, okay, we understand, and now we'll publish anything that you write, and we won't
Yeah.
question your creative direction on it. So I need to commit more time to get that next book done.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you clapped back at him. It's like, no, every word, every page, no,
Yes,
no. Like we're not about that revisionist history. It was like I'm going to tell it as it needs to be told. And we have the link in the chat of the from Friesen Press for Uncontrolled Chaos. So yeah, encouraging everybody to pick that up. I sure am. So that's going to be my next table read. I'm super excited about
perfect.
that.
Well, I'll look forward to signing it for you at the reunion this year.
Yeah, done. Love it. Well, thank you so much again, Vance, for being here and sharing this awesome insight with us and educating us a little bit more about Cauliflower Alley Club and all that you're doing. And thank you for everything that you've done for this industry and helping us grab some extra context about and insights like behind the scenes of all the things that we grew up mutually loving. And it's, again, why we're here. So thank you for serving our why. Much appreciated.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and thank you for having me.